Welcome back to Two Gents, 2 Cents, brought to you by 15 Minutes of Finance. This is episode 24, Different Ways to Give. This episode is sort of in celebration of Thanksgiving here. Last tax plan episode was about charitable contributions. So as we kind of continue that trend of focusing on, in the investment and tax worlds, what are the ways to be thankful and to look for ways to help others, we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about yet in an episode, which are specific ways to give that are more than just giving a de facto cash contribution, different mechanisms and accounts that you can give through, and how some of these provide investment and tax incentives to do them. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. It's been a little bit since there's been an episode. Both of us came a little bit under the weather during Thanksgiving, so we're back on. Our voices sound hopefully 90% normal at this point, and we're back to it. So, James,
Hello.
Let's talk about giving.
Yeah.
All right, so
let's do it.
we're gonna throw it to you first. So let's talk about something you've recently been involved with one of our clients that you have a little bit of experience with that I don't think a lot of people know about. It's kind of cool. So
Yeah.
this is referred to as a DAF, or a donor advised fund. Tell the listeners what that is and kind of the flexibility and benefits it provides you as you look for ways to give.
Yeah, so shout out to past relationships where people break up with you or you break up with them and you learn and you move on. That's where I learned about a donor advised fund. I was dating an extremely wealthy, successful person. Well, she wasn't, but her father was. And he has a massive donor advised fund. And we were visiting them, and one day he was just like, "Hey, do you do this for your clients?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he showed it to me, and at first I'm like, this sounds wacko. Like, this sounds really weird. But it's actually it's not a newer thing, but it's a newer tool that advisors are using. And the reason is because there's certain requirements you have to meet. Like, you have to donate or be able to donate so much. It's not much. It's like 50 grand or 100 grand or something. So in the grand scheme of things, when you really are ready to give or to assign money for giving purposes, it's a great, it's an excellent tool. I don't know the specific tax benefits. It's going to depend upon how much you give, I'm pretty sure, or when you give, or all that. But a donor advised fund is essentially a way that you assign money to a purpose of giving. So I've kind of been on repeat with that the last couple of minutes here, because that's really all it is. It's a fund where you either donate cash or you donate stocks or bonds, pretty much anything that you're investing in within your account. You can donate to your DAF. So it's just a separate account that's whole purpose is to write checks out of for charity purposes. So using this specific client that we have, he has a plan. He wants to donate so much money to his church over the next 3 to 5 years, right? And he could just write a check out of his IRAs, or he could literally just write a check, or he could transfer his already appreciated stock to a donor advised fund that's still his to control. He can still choose who he gives it to, and then it can appreciate over time. And so he's not actually necessarily, assuming growth in the account, writing a $500,000 check or a $100,000 check. He might be able to write a $110,000 check, or essentially, quote unquote, or $110,000 worth of stock, and then that appreciates to $500,000 in 5 years or whatever it is. And then that money is assigned to go to the church. So it's a way to give that's extremely tax beneficial to clients. And the person who showed me this account in particular, I mean, they're worth $40 million. So their donor advisor fund is like $2 million every year. And it's like, that's a huge, huge tool. And it's just another arrow in your quiver, I would say.
Yeah.
So it was a really fun thing to learn.
Yeah, so in terms of the tax side that James is talking about, so there's a couple major advantages. One, you're getting a tax deduction Remember from last tax plan episode, it's an itemized deduction, so make sure you're a taxpayer that itemizes. Now, that being said, the standard deduction for married couples is about $27,000. So if you're giving $50,000 to a donor advised fund, you're clearly itemizing because your itemized deductions are going to be significantly higher. So if you're using a donor advised fund, you're probably itemizing your deduction. So it's a deduction for you on your taxes in the year donated to the donor advised fund. That doesn't mean that it has to be given to the ultimate beneficiary, the charitable organization, yet. So,
but it can be if you want. If you want to,
it can be. So you can also let it build in the account. Okay, so you get a deduction in the current year, but can wait for maybe a certain organization to have a mission that you want to support or to launch something new that you want to provide. For example, the client James just talked about, they're helping a church build a new building. So they're saying, well, the church is finalizing permits. I know I'm going to support. I'm going to contribute now. The money's going to grow. I get the deduction, and now the money's there. So whenever they start breaking ground on the new building, I'm ready to provide the support for them. So tax deduction in the current year. 2 is you're getting a tax deduction on the fair market value. So if you have a stock that did really well, let's say, okay, so one pick we did really well this year was Palantir. So we got in it. It's up 172% since we chose it as like a stock to watch, okay? So if I had a bunch of money in Palantir and I had dumped a ton of money into my own account, I want to contribute to my church or a local food bank, okay? And I want to contribute in 2 years when they're going to launch a new product. Well, when I contribute that Palantir stock as a donation to the DAF, it's the value of my deduction is the fair market value on the date of donation. So it's gone up 172%. So now it's going to be significantly more money than I put in, and I'm getting a deduction for the full fair market value. As opposed to, for example, selling the stock, having this large capital gain, and then figuring out what to do with the money now that it's cash. So that's another really great advantage, is that it's the fair market value. And then third, it works in the form of like a Roth IRA where the growth in the fund is tax-free. So if I, in this case, contribute money to a donor advised fund and buy Palantir and it goes up 172% and all of that activity was within the donor advised fund, well, now it's 172% tax-free growth that now at the discretion of the fund manager can be used to support eligible charities with all of the money that has been growing and investing. So it's a great way to set up almost like a school's endowment fund where you can build up enough capital in it now where, we distribute 8% of it every year. We maintain the value of the account. Maybe it grows by an extra 1 to 2% every year. And the money has, $15,000 every year that goes to this certain charity, supports a mission to India every year, or supports the Christmas food drive for your local food drive that you support. You can set, certain missions you support, sort of how like endowment funds give scholarships to students, by just maintaining the investment of the account, not even tapping into the value and the principle of it.
So this account in particular, there's not a lot of downside assuming this money's purpose will always, or this investment's purpose will always be forgiving.
Right.
So if it's always to give, then it's great. But if you're like putting money in here thinking that you're going to be able to get it out, this is eventually it's not an account for you, because once it's in there, it's in there. There's no way you can get that out and that you will be able to use that money. I don't even, from what I researched, I don't even think there's like a penalty. I just think you can't do it.
Correct. It's irrevocable. You cannot ever get that money back.
Yeah. So that's the one really big downside to it that I would say.
All right, let's move on. So this is something that I don't think people necessarily relate to the world of giving, but it absolutely should be, because I don't think a lot of people understand the nuances of how these plans work. So the second way to give that we're going to talk about is a 529 plan, or another type of qualified education plan. So to give you a kind of breakdown of why this should be in people's heads of ways to give, for example, my wife had treasury notes, like 30-year treasury notes, which are a very, very low percentage rate. And back when her grandma was purchasing them, they were even significantly lower. In recent years, treasury notes have become high enough that they're a legitimate low risk investment choice for some investors. They're 1% to 2% back in the day, if that. So she had given, every year bought like $100 note or an $80 note or whatever for all of her grandkids. And then, their treasury notes, they accrue interest every year. And so when Michelle was 18, they were all given to her. And we went to the bank and cashed them out, whatever. And it was sort of like a gift to us for our wedding. Now, great thought. The ways you can give, especially to grandkids, can compound a lot better if you're a little bit more creative with the way you give. So a 529 plan, I think a misconception about it when I talk to people is I've never talked to somebody who doesn't view a 529 plan as, I started a 529 plan for my kid. That at its base is incorrect. The 529 plan is yours. It is not for a particular recipient. Let's say I start a plan for my child and it's the only child I ever have. And there's a tragic accident and he passes away, or he chooses a trade and he doesn't want to go to college, or whatever. I still have the 529 plan. It's not in my son's name. So let's say now I have, or Michelle has a sibling who is struggling financially and their kid's about to go to college. We can use that 529 plan to pay for a nephew's college, a sibling's college, a grandchild's college. So we won't go into the full specifics. It's very easy to just Google 529 plan eligible recipients. There's a list of all of the different familial bonds that are eligible as a eligible recipient of the funds, but it's your plan. So if you're a new parent, you can start a 529 plan right now. You don't have to wait to have a kid. You can use it once you have kids, but you shouldn't wait until you have a kid to start investing in a 529 plan to give your kid this money when they go to college. Same thing with grandparents. If you're like, look, my kid, they just got married, they're already talking about kids, or I know they want a big family, but they're going to take a couple years off. If in your head you're thinking, I'm going to give a gift to my grandkids, start a 529 plan today. Every year, max out the amount that you can contribute and just start building money in that account through the power of compound interest. We've harped on that a billion times in this episode. If you're 20 years old, it only takes $12,500 to be a millionaire when you're 65. That's how powerful compound interest is. So if you're a grandparent and your grandkid, you start a 529 plan 8 years before your first kid even had a grandkid, then they have 18 years to go. 15 grand could be 50 to 75 grand by the time they go to college. So such a powerful way to give. And the whole benefit of a 529 plan is that it works like a Roth IRA where contributions and the growth of those contributions are tax-free. So it can triple, it can quadruple, it can continually compound, and maybe the first grandkid doesn't go to college and you go, oh, well, nothing to do here. Keep investing the money until the second grandkid goes to college, because it's not tied to the student, it's tied to the donor. So everybody is eligible to start a 529 plan as a very powerful gift to support really any family member eventually pursuing higher education.
So a couple of questions. With the 529 plan, do you get a tax deduction for contributing?
No, so it works like how a Roth IRA would, where growth is tax-free, but there's no deduction for the...
Okay.
Yep.
But there's gift limits.
There are gift limits. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head, and different states have different 529
rules.
plans. Yeah.
And then I'm like 95% this is correct, that although you can't use the money for yourself, you can turn that into an IRA for the beneficiary at some point.
That's a great question. So if you don't use, so you're talking about they don't use it for college?
Yeah. So for this is something that I read recently. I can't remember where I read it, but that there are ways to turn the 529 into an IRA. I think you have to pay. You have to. Yeah. It's a conversion expense, but you can still turn it into an IRA for them.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And I mean, if you start a 529 plan, it's been 25 years, and then you learn like none of your grandkids are going to go to college, none of your kids are going to go to college, whatever. You've built up way more than your initial investment. That paying a non-qualified education withdrawal fee, I think it's 10%. Same how like a traditional IRA, you do it before retirement, before 59 and a half, you pay the 10% early withdrawal penalty. I believe it works in a very similar way for a 529 plan. So I mean, the worst case scenario is you pay a 10% fee on an account that's tripled since contributing money to it. So, I mean, it's a pretty great way to accumulate funds and as a gift of education expenses.
Right.
They've also loosened the rules where I want to say now it's up to $10,000 per year can be used for non-higher education. So I believe
cool.
there's now a new limit where up to $10,000 you can pay for like private high school or elementary school, stuff like that. So even the types of education that you can pay for, that world has expanded a little bit with new legislation. So great way as an investment vehicle to manage money, grow money with an ultimate purpose of giving. But if you start it early, the gift you give is way bigger, bigger.
Okay, so I got 2 accounts now that I'm going to talk about that Brandon didn't know we were going to talk about. But I want to see if Brandon can guess the names. Boy. So UGMA and UTMA. What do you think that those mean? And honestly, I could be wrong on the UTMA. I know what UGMA means, but UTMA could be totally something different.
I have no idea.
Okay, so
I've blocked this from my memory.
Yeah. Was this in the 66?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
all the education ones were.
So UGMA and UTMA accounts are essentially just custodian accounts, which is an old person, a grandpa opens up an account for the grandkid, and when the grandkid turns 18 or 21, that account becomes theirs. It's like a transfer of a brokerage account. So we call those custodian accounts. So UGMA is Uniform Gifts to Minors account.
That sounds right.
And it's like...
that's what I was just saying.
Yeah. And UTMA is Uniform Transactional something Minors account. I don't really know what the difference is. But they functionally act the same. There's just a few minor different rules. But that is another way to give for a minor, but it's strictly like... you're basically building up cash or stocks, and then the second they hit the requirement minimum age, it's their account. You have no access. You have no control. It's sort of like a trust fund, but it's even less rules. Like at least a trust fund, there are expectations and schedules to follow, right? Like you can have 10 grand every year you hit an even age, like 22, 24, something like that. You can do all that stuff with trust funds. With these accounts, you can't do that. But we have a couple of UGMAs for a couple of babies that are going to be very, very wealthy when they turn 18. And I hope...
Are any of those in my name or no?
No, sorry. Well, I opened up an UGMA for you. When you turn 60, you're going to get a nice little gift. But the clients in discussion here that we're talking about, they own like a woodworking business, and they just constantly... They don't even put money in their IRAs anymore. It's very weird. They're like, just put money in the custodian account, and that's what they want to do. So those babies, you're gonna be rich one day.
Now, and I didn't do any research on these. You blindsided me with these. So remind me, are these, do they work in a tax deferred or tax free growth model when the money's in there?
Yeah, guys, I don't even know actually. I was always under the consideration it was just a brokerage account.
Just like a brokerage account. It's just in somebody else's name ultimately.
Yeah,
the end
I
recipient.
guess I would need to look if there's tax. There's no way they could make... So you're saying like if I sell a stock...
Yeah,
who's paying the taxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the custodian. I think the grandpa's.
So it's like a brokerage account that you can gift to the next generation. Is it always you said grandpa a lot? Is it always a skip a generation type of thing, or it can be to kids?
You can do anybody, but it's to minors. So it's
right.
Usually people who are. I mean, I don't think you can open up an UGMA for a 25-year-old. So.
Okay. So for minors, okay.
Yeah.
And it's always it becomes theirs upon no longer being a minor, or you can set significantly future age.
No,
for
it's
possession.
18 or 21.
Okay.
I think that's the difference between the UGMA and the UTMA is the age, but I can't really remember.
And is the benefit of this that it's removed from your estate for the purpose of gift planning?
Well, I think it's more of a concern of health.
There. Oh, okay.
It's a concern of health. So it's like I'm 75 pounds overweight. I'm a smoker and drinker. Like I just want to start putting money away for little Timmy now. It's kind of that's how I see it being used.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, number 4 that we're going to talk about is the yearly gift tax exclusion. So this is the simplest one we're going to talk about. Just a reminder for everybody out there. I get questioned about this a lot. Anytime someone asks, "Oh, am I going to be taxed if I give 25 grand to my kid or whatever?" So the rules for gifting in any given year: any individual can gift to any other individual up to $14,000 without any filing or tax requirement. Okay, so if I give James $14,001, the $1 means I now have to file a form on my taxes to report the gift. If it's $14,000, I'm under my annual limit. I can give James a gift. I can give my nephew a gift. I can give a random homeless person a gift.
Is it just the $1? Or do you have to file?
It's because it's 14,000. So if it's 14,001, no. So you would be the so it'd be $1.
So I would just file why you gave $1.
Yep, $1. Yep. So it's anything over $14,000. That's per donor, per recipient. So for a lot of people who are giving to kids or grandkids, if you're married, giving to a married family member, there's $14,000 from me to them, from my wife to them, from me to their spouse, and from my wife to their spouse. Okay, so it's per person, per recipient, which means 14, 28, 56 total, okay, is the amount that a couple can give to another couple. It's half of that if it's one person giving to a couple or a couple giving to one person. So very significant, very powerful gifting tool, also very powerful estate planning tool where you can give relatively large amounts to people if you're a high net worth individual as you slowly kind of are liquidating your estate. The reason you would do this being in that scenario where I give $14,001 to James, okay? I don't pay taxes on the $1 gift to James, but I report that I gave that $1 above the limit, and that $1 reduces my lifetime gift limit, which is like $15 million, okay? So not a consideration for a lot of people, but your gift and your estate tax.
Okay, hold on. I have a question. I got to ask this.
Yeah.
So is this just like... is the IRS just like the North Pole where everybody's got a naughty or nice folder and in there is like $14,999,999? Like what is the organization with keeping that? Does everybody just have
it would be the IRS. So every time that you file that form on your taxes, that amount is now recorded and it will reduce your lifetime gift/estate tax exclusion amount when you pass away.
And so when there's a discrepancy, it's your files against theirs. Who wins? Sorry.
Probably them if you haven't kept record.
Santa's going to win.
If you've kept record, you will win. Like if you call the IRS and say, here's every gift tax report we've ever filed, this is the actual amount that should be remaining in our estate limit, you'll win and they'll adjust their records.
Okay.
If you've never kept any records and you're starting to estate plan before you pass away and they say, oh, you've given $1 million in gifts over the course of your life that have reduced your exclusion, you say, no, it's only been $800,000. I mean, if you have no records to disprove, they're going to say, look, these are all the gifts we have on file. Like,
gotcha.
Our number's going to stick.
Sorry, I have questions, guys. I need to learn this stuff too. What if you have a client who they're way over the gift limit?
Okay.
Not previously, but just their net worth, and they give it to a trust, and then their beneficiary is actually the new executor of the trust. Does that count?
It'll depend on the type of trust.
Oh, okay.
It'll depend on if it's a revocable versus irrevocable trust.
Okay.
It'll depend on whether it constitutes a gift or not. Generally, moving assets to a trust do not count as a gift. It may still count as part of their estate, depending on the type of trust. So if it's a revocable trust, meaning they have the ability to remove it and change the trust later, the owner
who does the giver or
the giver to the trust, the trust donor. So the donor, if they maintain executive control and it's a revocable trust, it's not considered removed from their estate because they still have control over it. Where an irrevocable trust, there are types of irrevocable trusts you can set up that completely remove it from your possession and it's no longer considered part of your estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry for interrupting everybody. Back to our original scheduled program.
Back to the very exciting world of taxation. So just know there's nothing to think about if you do not give any single person more than $14,000 in gifts. If you do, you're not paying taxes. You just have started to slowly chip into your $15 million limit. All right, last thing we're going to talk about with all this talk about gifts and how to give and how to be generous is when not to give.
I thought you were going to say give them our Cash App or something. Last
so
thing we're gonna
my
ask
Venmo
for.
is at no. So one thing to keep in mind, if you are in the mindset of how do I give, how do I pass things on, what's my inheritance going to look like to my inheritors, sometimes the greatest thing to do is to not give something until you pass. So I want to remind everybody that there is an element called a step up in basis that applies to most property like real estate and stocks, which means if you have that really nice house that you bought in the 1980s for $100,000 and it's now 2.5 million, if you give that to your grandkid or your son or your daughter before you die, like we just talked about with donor advised funds, generally gifts, charitable contributions, they're given and assessed at fair market value. That's a $2.5 million gift that's chipping into that limit. If you just pass away, it's included as part of your estate and it gets a step up in basis so that the value to the new inheritors is the fair market value at the date of your death. So there are times where it's advised to leave things in your estate, not gift them, spell it out clearly in your will who gets what, but to not give all of these gifts that will exceed these limits, and just let these appreciated gains die with you and let the inheritors receive a step up in basis on those assets. So that's something important to keep in mind. Is that
step up in basis?
Step up in basis. Sometimes the greatest...
Step up. In basis. All right, sorry.
Sometimes the greatest gift is to not gift at all and to die. So,
oh jeez, sad Hallmark movie here. Jeez Louise.
No, but it is jokes aside. It is sometimes actually the best consideration is to leave things inside of your estate, not reallocate ownership, not gift anything, and let the step up in basis take hold, especially if you've 1031 to real estate. It's one of the biggest examples where if you've been deferring capital gains over and over and over as you exchange property, you want that accumulated unrealized gain to die with you. You do not want to recognize the gain by selling the property or giving the property or doing other things that remove and make you realize the gain, and now you're paying a bunch of taxes when the gain would have just died with you and no one would have had to pay any taxes at all. So James, any last thoughts? Those are the 5 ways to give. Any last thoughts on giving this Thanksgiving Christmas season?
Yeah, look, I am, for as much as I try to do to, like, my job in the firm is to make people money. Like, that's realistically, I mean, ultimately it's to invest how they want. So if they're like, hey, I don't want to take much risk, well then, they're not going to get a bunch of return. But I would say in my, I don't know, maybe 6,000 client history where I've sat or seen 6,000 different investment portfolios, I've never seen a great giver who's poor. So, and I promise you, they didn't wait till they were rich to give. So if you guys are like, I got to wait till I have more money to give, I promise you, giving isn't about how much money you have. It's about that you're giving. So, not to be lame or anything, but I think giving is a great sign of someone who's going to be wealthy one day.
So poor people are not generous is the...
Well, I'm saying don't let being poor hold you back, because I think that I do not think giving follows being rich or being wealthy.
Yeah,
I think being wealthy and being rich follows being a good giver.
People who are generous and manage their contributions are also probably fairly good stewards of their assets.
You can call it God, you can call it karma, whatever you want, but I've seen it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So that's my final word.
So be generous.
Consider giving. My Cash App is JDub.
So be generous this holiday season, I think, is overall the takeaway. What I will say here, a couple quick things. We're sending in an offer this week on a studio. If it's not this one, it'll be the next one. But
exciting!
We're currently in the process of sending actual offers, which means permanent studio. It's going to mean better quality videos. It means it's going to be video content.
You get to see our faces.
Woo, woo, I think our viewership's going to decline significantly in this new stage.
Not when I put that makeup on, though, dude. They're gonna
just enough eyeliner to make the eyes pop, So look for more reels, short form content for just highlights of videos. Look for video content of episodes. There's also going to be a major push in the new year with our studio to bring on guests, and part of Two Gents and 2 Cents from now on will be one of us and a guest, sometimes both of us as well, but a lot of times it'll be one of us and a guest. So the Two Gents is not always now just us talking to each other. It's going to be us and somebody else as the two people. And so we're hoping to bring very informative conversations where I think a lot of the reason people listen to shows like Dave Ramsey is because when people call in and ask questions and you talk to real people, you're eventually going to relate to the type of things you talk about because they're real, normal people talking about their investments and their path of investing. So as we bring on business owners, influencers, ex-athletes we have listed, a million different people, regular people with stock options. How do they decide to take a new job when they have stocks that are currently vesting? All sorts of regular people questions. They get to ask questions to us. We get to ask them questions that should hopefully help our listeners. So we're really hoping to bring a lot of transparency about the type of financial decisions and things affecting the average people. So there's lots of new content coming. I would also say this episode in particular, great one to save, highlight, favorite, save the link somewhere. This is one of those episodes where when you want to make a contribution, great episode to go listen to send to your friend. That person who is a major donor to your church or your organization. Great episode to send them. Hey, did you realize there's a donor advised fund? Did you realize these other ways that you can give? A lot of great resources that can make your gifts a lot more powerful and compounded than just the cash value at the initial contribution. So a lot of really great stuff there. Anyways, look forward to all the new content, new episode types, new episode studio. Lots of great improvement coming in 2025. We're very, very excited about it. We appreciate all of you listening so far. We'll see you next time. And as always, invest early.
Invest often.